Hello humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. So you want to know if you are addicted to video games? Well, there's a very easy way to know. And there is a number, guys, and I'm going to tell it to you. I'm not going to bury it. The number is 6 hours. Right? If you spend 6 hours in the activity of video games a day, you're addicted to video games. Now, how do you quantify this? Well, let me tell you how I came up with this number and everything that I'm going to tell you. Well, for some homework that I had to do, I had to read a bunch of research papers, some medical papers regarding video game addiction. Right? It's a topic that I chose. And I'm going to give you the cliff notes here if you feel like spending a lot of hours on the internet for no purpose. You can go ahead and do the research yourselves, but there's quite a few studies you can look up for yourselves up there. A very good one that just happened was the one with Steam, right? Where they took about 13,000 accounts, participants, and determined that in general, there was about 13 to 18% of people that could be classified as being addicted to video games because that's how much time they were spending on them. Now, how do you quantify this number, right? It's just not playing the video games, right? It's also being involved in other activities. Some people will play video games, then they'll watch videos about video games. Maybe they'll do social media posting about video games, and that's really what their life revolves around. And it's not unique to video games. The same things apply to social media, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. And your cell phone, right? And the cell phone and the internet seems to be the big catalyst here for this jump in video game addiction. It seems to be there's a clear line, a clear divider between people who grew up with video games pre-internet and post-internet. The addiction rates for older folks that didn't grow up with the internet is far less than gamers that grew up in the internet era, right? It's because they have that immediacy. If you really think about it, when we grew up, usually the video game was in the main TV in the living room, and you couldn't play all day even if you wanted to because your mom wanted to watch your shows or the novelas, whatever it was, right? So you had a shared TV, right? Especially in the inner city, we didn't, depending how you grew up, maybe you didn't have that many resources, right? But it was pre-internet. You didn't have video games at your fingertips 24/7. It just wasn't that way. And post-internet, right? You can see where people are more adept with social media. They are always on their cell phones. So they're playing games, and even while they're playing games, they might be posting, right, and doing other things. Now, let's be clear. Who are we talking about here? Are we talking about streamers? Are we talking about content creators, stuff like that? No. If you actually make money on the internet, that wasn't part of any of these cases, even if it was part-time, right? If you're doing it part-time and people are, sending you, what do you call, bits or super chats or, whatever you're getting out there, that's not it, right? If you're making some type of income. But people that make very little or no money at all, spending this kind of time on there is absolutely an addiction. People that spend all their day on the internet or all day online, searching for terms about, whether it's video games or gaming in general, whatever, that's an addiction. Now, look, I'm nobody to tell anybody anything about self-control, let me tell you. I've lived a very fun life, but even in my debauchery, even if I'm a degenerate when it comes to video game hoarding, I do have limits that I set for myself, right? I'm also a workaholic. So that is what I put most of my time in, right? I work a lot, and I try to do the best that I can at work, and I really, whether it's work or school, and even school, what I'm doing now is for my career. It's just so I can work more, right? So I can have a better life for my family, right? But when that time is spent doing something else, aka wasted, and when you're talking about 6 hours a day, as opposed to most Americans spend about 6.5 hours a week, you're almost spending, 7 times more than the average American online. That can be the problem. If you were spending those, say, 7 hours or 6 hours, whatever you spend a day, reading a book or getting educated, whatever, you would have a much better career. Your life would be different. Now, these people are not only spending that time online. It's not only that they spend the time online or the time on video games or the time that they do posting about their video game hobby. It's just that they neglect other things, and you can see this online. If people are addicted to social media, for example, they'll tell you they're depressed. They'll tell you they can't pay the rent. They'll tell you that this and that and the other. When clearly, if they would spend their time more productively in a job, for example, they wouldn't have those issues. If they spend their time actually getting counseling instead of telling people on the internet that they're depressed, they'd be much better off. This is why I don't believe a lot of people that say they're depressed, online, because a lot of them tell you they're depressed, and right after they tell you that, they tell you they need money through super chats if you want to give it to them, right? So it's a slippery slope, right? It's a slippery slope, but that's the number where you have to be aware, whether it's you, maybe a family member that you're concerned about, that really is it, right? And it's different. Let's say they just binging on a game because they want to finish it, and it's just like 90 days that they're going to get this game done, whatever. Okay, that's fine. But if you see this pattern of activity and they're playing, whatever it is, they're not making money at it, they're not being productive at all, and they're spending 6+ more hours a day, that's when you really have to be concerned, especially if they're young. And why do you have to be concerned if they're young? Because there's some studies coming out of Canada, guys, where they're not huge numbers, but they are concerning numbers. Whether you get like 0.3, maybe 0.1% of the population that start developing psychosis symptoms from just being exposed to video games. These people do nothing else but play video games, and it gets so bad for some people that they have to go under treatment and medication for symptoms of psychosis. They actually have to take very strong medications and be in treatment for about 6 months to get rid of the problem, right? To come back to normal. That is concerning, right? And let me tell you, I'm not here to tell you not to play video games. I love video games. But as many as video games as I have, which is more than most people, right, I don't play as much as people would think that I do, right? Because for me, it's more about having that room, having that place where I can study. Most of the things that I do in my room, in my video game room, have very little to do with video games. But I really enjoy spending time in that room. It just, it relaxes me, sort of like when people have plans. But it's not that way for everybody out there. And you have to know what the limits are. And you have to know how to identify this behavior. Now, let me tell you, whether you're a degenerate game hoarder like me or a degenerate game player like people that are addicted, it's very hard to get through, right? You can talk to me till you're blue in the face about maybe you shouldn't buy anymore, and probably I'm still gonna buy some more, right? It is just it is what it is, man. You have to accept your vices, right? Whatever they are. But if you're concerned about young people, if it's affecting you negatively, where you're being unproductive and you're not reaching your goals because you're playing video games, hey, you need to get help, right? Not from me, definitely not from me, but at least you have a number that you can look at, you can refer to, and from that, maybe you can change your direction, change your focus, make yourself a better person out there. All right, humans, I'm sure this is not going to get a lot of views, but I really wanted to talk about it. I found it very interesting when I was reading the literature and the effects that these people were having from video games. You had, people that just completely neglected their relationships. Their wives were cheating on them, spouses were cheating on them. They didn't even know that. They didn't even have a clue because they weren't even interacting with their families, right? Some of them would skip meals. Some of them are skipping showers. Some of them are, skipping personal care. I mean, there's all kinds of craziness. A lot of it we see on YouTube, but at least you know why, and it is, once you cross that threshold, man, of 6 hours, you got issues. And I guess in some way we all do, right? All right, humans, I will catch you on the next one. Take care.